your take on how we go through this next year.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you organizers for actually continuing doing this event in a very turbulent time, but also promising time for Ukraine. I will be speaking in my previous capacity and my new capacity is business and pharma industry. So when we're talking about the reforms, and if we try to look at what has happened over the last year, we look in the perspective what happened from previous year, same conference, same time, and today. So I will try to go through a few things which are business related and gives you a bit of insight what actually happened. So first there was an introduction of new regulation and new transparency and corporate governance to the limited liability companies, new structures, board instruments, a lot of things that give a lot of opportunity for investors and flexibility of investment. The new privatization law, which gives an interesting perspective about arbitrage and use English law as a guidance for all the privatization deals. And it's not just the law being signed, the first tenders, online tenders to privatized property already started, sometimes tripling the price of initial bid. We got 4G launched, and we not just launched, we got money to the state budget, but we also have it functioning. But I think Alexander can give a better glimpse on this. But it's, again, just a year. Probably one of the biggest achievements that's not been done for more than 20 years is liberalization of the currency regulation. It's a law which is in place, and starting from the February, we're going to see a tremendous changes in action for a lot of investors and a lot of opportunity for the business here. We got the first National Investment Councils taking place with almost $1 trillion all-up company sitting at the table, which already leads to some interesting developments in terms of investment and practical things taking place in Ukraine today. And then, if we look further what actually did happen, and it's always indication is the businesses that comes in Ukraine and doing business. It's a topic of the next panel, but it's also related to my current role. And so what happened over the last year, they had famous rocket players, those who play tennis knows that, or who doing diving know it. So the big skiing factory will be built in Vinnytsia. And a decision done and investments coming in place. General Electric, the big deal about the production of locomotives is also taking place during this year. Monsanto opened their big new seeds plant. H&M opening stores. IKEA opening stores. We are in Odessa, and in a few, I think, believe that final opening of TIS and Cargill here in Odessa port will take in place this autumn. And the first step already took place. So this is indication of what has happened in Ukraine over the last year. But at the same time, when people say, well, elections, what really happened over the just last months? We expecting the voting on the concession law on the second reading. We passed, the parliament passed the law on the open data for exploration companies, so there is putting more transparency for the businesses that is involved in the explorations. It's open data, and the initiative of Ministry of Finance, particularly putting not just the whole transaction of the state online, but also the state budget with the whole detailization and BI behind this. So it's already happened this year. Now, elections. Elections is always elections. It doesn't matter if it's Ukraine, United States, European states, you will always have a discussion, battling of ideas and proposals. And this will, of course, have an influence on the things happening in the parliament. But we still have, I think, the biggest indication of the pro-reform ideas will happen with the approval of the state budget, cooperation with IMF going on the right track, and we will probably hear soon good announcements. And then from the business perspective, if you look on the business perspective, all industries, almost all industries are growing double digits. Pharma double digits, consecutive years, IT double digits, agri double digits, and a lot of perspective. So there is much more optimism in what's happening in Ukraine, and that's why I made a decision to go into the business, because there is much more opportunities and much more return on investments in the business today. It's a time to invest. and the government and the politician have the very decisive focus. President spoke today in the parliament with very strong support for the voting on the definition of North Atlantic and European integration of Ukraine as a part of constitution.